Hello, dinos. This is Uncle Jesse. I'd like to welcome you all to a session I'm calling Perfume for Everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you all enjoy. Part 1: Your Sense of Smell. The sense of smell, also known as olfaction, is a very overlooked part of our bodies. We tend to think about our eyes and our ears more often, but don't forget to say thank you to your nose. Your nose and your sense of smell serve as a miniature chemical detector. Your nose warns you of poisonous or rotten food, it links to emotions and memories in our brains, and perhaps my favorite function of the sense of smell is that it helps us find food. Obviously, this was important back in the hunter-gatherer days. I'm not a hunter-gatherer, but I do work in an office across the street from a bagel shop, and whenever I walk past that bagel shop and I smell that lovely, warm, welcoming aroma, I have to resist the urge to walk in and immediately spend my entire paycheck on bagels. And also, another thing about the sense of smell is that it is incredibly versatile. The human nose is incredibly versatile. The number of smells that the human nose can recognize varies depending on genetics and also depending on which study you're reading, but it has been clocked as low as 10,000 and as high as 1 trillion. That is a lot of smells that you can smell. Of course, we're here today to talk about smells you can put on yourself. Now, my goal today is not to turn you into a snob. There are already enough of those in the world. And this is a topic where you can go as deep or as shallow as you wish. To help illustrate this, I've created a very scientific chart. Now, on the left of the nerdiness scale, you can see that some people don't think at all about fragrance, and that's fine. As long as you shower and brush your teeth, really, you're already doing better than I did in middle school. In the middle of the scale, some people find a fragrance that they like and they stick with it. And on the right of the nerdiness scale, some people are like me and turn into full-on geeks. So it's up to you to decide where you are on this scale. I'm just here to give you a little introduction to this whole wide world. But before we go any further, there are multiple elephants in the room to address. Part 2: Disclaimers Abound. Oh boy, it's disclaimer time! How exciting! Ha! Just for you, I've picked out 3 of the finest disclaimers from my extensive disclaimer catalog. Okay, jokes aside, disclaimer 1: I am not an expert. I am just a guy who stumbled into this hobby by accident. I have done my best to proofread, fact check, and get input from others on the script for this video, but that does not change the fact that I am not an expert. If I have made egregious mistakes, please sound off and I will provide corrections in the Learn Squad resources. Disclaimer 2: I am a Mexican American who does not speak French. Most perfume terminology originates from the French language, and my pronunciation may not be the best. If you want to know the most correct pronunciation of a French word or phrase, you can ask Google or your local French teacher. If only I'd gotten into a hobby where the words come from Spanish. Disclaimer 3: Speaking of language, the world of perfume can be a linguistics nightmare sometimes. Words are hard. Let's talk about words. I have titled this session Perfume for Everyone. And some of you may already be asking, does this include cologne? Aha, therein lies our problem, and in fact it is not one but 2 problems: naming conventions and gendered nouns. For the purposes of this session, I will be using perfume as a gender-neutral term for a product that has the primary function of applying a scent to the skin. You may know perfume as a word that refers to fragrance products marketed to women, but this is not a universal language convention. And parfum is another term, but that is usually used to refer to a concentration level, which we will talk about later. Now, what about cologne? Well, the word cologne has an even more confusing history. It originally referred to eau de Cologne, which was a product made in the city of Cologne, Germany. It was a very popular and very expensive product. Later on, eau de Cologne came to refer to a concentration level, like we mentioned earlier with Parfume. But nowadays, in present-day American English, the word cologne refers to any fragrance marketed to men. It's become a generic term. And the word aftershave also deserves a mention, but it is usually less of a fragrance product and more of a skincare product with an added scent. Lastly, since the 1990s, fragrance products marketed as genderless or gender neutral have also taken their share of the market. The words fragrance and perfume are both common when referring to gender neutral fragrances. All of this may sound incredibly confusing, and that's because it is. Language is always evolving and things are always changing, but here's the best rundown I can give. Perfume and cologne as gendered nouns for female and male fragrance products are common in present-day English, but it wasn't always this way. And among fragrance geeks, perfume is acceptable as a gender-neutral term, and fragrance is also acceptable. And finally, the only objective difference between a feminine and masculine fragrance is the designer's intent. The perfume designer may have intended for their fragrance to be more feminine or more masculine, and the fragrance may be marketed a certain way, but there really are no rules. Part 3. Why perfume? Broadly speaking, there are two reasons that humans wear perfume. And in my opinion, only one of these reasons matters. The first reason humans wear perfume is to impress others, especially potential mates. Now, this is a controversial subject, but based on what I've read, here is my summary. There is some scientific evidence that scent plays a role in how humans select a mate, but there are so many other factors, and scent is probably pretty far down on the list. Also, human pheromones, so-called human pheromones, have not been proven to exist. Scientists are still arguing over whether the chemicals commonly believed to be human pheromones actually have the same effect on our brains as they do on the brains of other animals. Of course, this hasn't stopped perfume marketers from playing into the idea that a new perfume is the perfect way to attract a mate. They would love for you to believe that their fragrance is the perfect way to find someone, and they will spend as much money as possible to make you believe it. This is the reason why perfume advertisements are quite notoriously very sexualized and also sometimes incredibly weird. Here we have some miscellaneous advertisements from magazines featuring very muscular and attractive men and women in their most striking poses. But I know what some of you are thinking. Jesse, that's not weird. I thought you said perfume advertisements were weird. Okay, not weird enough for you? You want to see the weird stuff? How about a man punching his own shadow? How about Nicki Minaj standing next to a horse? How about a woman licking a statue? Is that weird enough for you? Yeah, well, I hope it's weird enough for you, because that last one is definitely the weirdest one I could find. Probably the funniest thing I found while researching for this video was a series of toilet cleaner advertisements that were modeled after perfume advertisements. I don't know what to say about these other than it's amazing. Now, it's easy to see that these perfume ads are full of bull honky, but it's important to remember why. Perfume marketers and fashion companies want you to believe that their product is a surefire way to attract a mate, but this belief is not backed up by the evidence. And even if it did work, I still wouldn't recommend it. Consider this. Do you want someone who likes you for you, or someone who only likes you because of the expensive stuff you're wearing? Now, as a side note, If you already have a special someone and that special someone likes a certain fragrance, that's different. There is a certain joy in finding a fragrance that your partner also enjoys. And that's why you'll often see couples shopping together at the perfume section of your local department store. It's specifically the idea of attracting someone with perfume that's rather questionable. But wearing something that your partner enjoys is enjoyable in itself, and I would recommend it. And that brings us to the second reason that humans wear perfume because wearing perfume is enjoyable. When I first got into this hobby, I had a lot of fun trying out different scents, finding the ones I liked and the ones I didn't like. And now that I am a full fledged perfume geek with a sizable collection, I like to pick out a fragrance when I go to work, when I go to church, when I go to see friends. It's an accessory like a hat or a watch would be. I even keep a couple of rollers and a scented lotion at my workplace, and if I'm having a hard day, I can quickly roll on a scent or put on some lotion and take a few minutes to just breathe and enjoy the smell. I've done it several times while writing the script for this video. It makes me happy, and a perfume should make you happy. Whether you become a frag head or not, your goal should be to enjoy yourself and find something that makes you smile. Part 4. What's it made of? The majority of perfumes on the market are spray perfumes. A spray perfume consists of fragrant chemicals such as essential oils and perfume oils, and a solvent, usually alcohol. The fragrant chemicals dissolve in the alcohol, and the spray is applied to the skin. As the alcohol evaporates off of your skin, it carries the dissolved chemicals with it, and they eventually reach the chemical receptor called your nose. Now, spray perfume is put into different categories based on how concentrated it is. And if you've shopped for perfume before, you may have seen a chart like this before. These are the 5 categories, 5 concentration levels that you'll see in spray perfume. And the exact numbers might vary depending on who you ask, but based on this chart, a perfume with 20 to 30% concentration of perfume oil is a parfum, also known as an extrait de parfum. You'll see that sometimes. A perfume with 15 to 20% concentration of perfume oil is an eau de parfum or EDP. A perfume with 5 to 15% perfume oil is an eau de toilette or EDT. A perfume with 2 to 4% concentration is an eau de cologne or EDC. And finally, 1, 2, or 3% concentration is an eau fraiche or EDF. And you will see those acronyms used a lot because it's much shorter than writing out the full phrase. So which one should you buy? One that's more concentrated or one that's less concentrated? Well, there's upsides and downsides. There's pros and cons. More concentrated perfumes have the upside of lasting longer and being bolder. But the downsides of being more likely to stain clothes, often being more expensive, having a stickiness on your skin that some people find unpleasant, and also being unsuitable for certain contexts. A perfume that fills the entire room probably isn't the one you want to wear at the workplace, for example. I personally have some very strong scents in my own collection, but I don't wear them very often because they actually are so strong that they irritate my nose. On the other hand, less concentrated perfumes don't last as long and tend to be fainter, but they are generally less expensive, are less likely to stain your clothes, and don't have the stickiness issue. Overall, I'd say that eau de toilette, or EDT, has become the standard for a reason. And EDT is concentrated enough to last for a few hours, but it's not too concentrated. Ultimately, which one you end up using is up to personal preference. Just remember that if you do choose to wear an eau de parfum or an extrait de parfum, don't spray it directly on your clothes. That will definitely stain your clothes. A side note about concentration. Be wary of perfumes that have the same name but are actually different. At this point, I'm convinced that fashion companies just try to make me confused for fun. Sometimes you'll see two different fragrances with the same name, and oftentimes it will be, say, one is an EDT and one is an EDP. So they're the same, right? It's just the same fragrance at two different strengths. Of course not. Nope, not at all. Now, sometimes designers will make slight tweaks to a formula for the stronger version, and that's understandable, but sometimes they are entirely different, and this hits me personally because of these two fragrances. This is L'Homme by Yves Saint Laurent and L'Homme by Yves Saint Laurent. One is an eau de toilette, one is an eau de parfum, and in my opinion, they do not smell the same at all. I understand it's highly subjective, but I've used both, and in my opinion, they're just not the same. Does this make me angry? Yes, of course it does. Well, what's the takeaway? What can we do about this? Really, all you can do is use Google or check a perfume website like Fragrantica before buying something online to make sure you're actually getting what you think you're getting. Really, if you're buying online, you should be doing that anyway, and this is just another reason. Okay, so that was a lot of talk about spray perfume. But what if you don't want to wear spray perfume? What if your skin is sensitive to alcohol? That's actually a question I've gotten many times. Well, there are other options. First, you can find pure perfume oil or essential oils sold in rollers or in bottles. And in my experience, perfume oil works great as a personal fragrance. It doesn't project like a spray perfume does because there's no solvent, but it also lasts for an eternity. I really enjoy wearing a roller perfume while I'm at work because that's an environment where I don't need everyone and their dog to know what I'm wearing. I just want to have something that's enjoyable for myself. Again, if you use one of these, be careful to not get it on your clothes, and also be careful not to leave it in a hot place where it will leak. Second, there is wax perfume. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend it. It hurts to say, but in my experience, wax perfume doesn't last long, and also the scents are barely there, which means it has the worst of both worlds. I'm sure that there are good wax perfumes out there. If you have a wax perfume that you love, please tell me about it. But all the ones that I've tried have fallen flat, and I'd rather use a roller or even a scented lotion. Part 5. What do I buy? Jesse's Law of Perfume. Everyone who gets into this hobby asks some variation of the same question. Which perfume should I buy? Which perfume is right for me? How do I find my signature scent? Which perfumes are good? Really, all of these questions are the same, and this is where I'd like to introduce a rule that I like to call Jesse's Law of Perfume. What is Jesse's Law of Perfume? Well, here it is. If you like it, it's good. Really, that's it. To be a little bit more specific, if you like it and your partner or roommates or family like it, then it's the right one and you should wear it. If you don't like it, or if it makes your friends and family feel sick, then you should wear something else. Don't let snobs on the internet control your life. If you like it, it's good. Now, I know what you might be thinking, because I can read minds. You're thinking, but what if I don't know what I like? Well, this is the fun part. You get to shop. There are two things I would recommend trying if you're shopping: sample packs and your local mall, and both have their pros and cons. Sample packs and so-called exploration kits can be found all day on Amazon, so you don't even have to leave your house to buy one. Most packs will contain a 1 milliliter sample of 8 to 10 fragrances. The biggest upside to this approach is the time. You get to wear the fragrance all day, and 1 milliliter is enough to try the perfume for a few days, and that gives you plenty of time to see if you like the scent or not. But there are also two downsides to sample packs. One, even if the packs themselves aren't too expensive, they are more pricey in terms of dollars per milliliter, in the same way that a small jar of honey at the grocery store costs more per ounce than the big jar of honey. And second, these sample packs are sometimes used to offload samples of discontinued fragrances. For example, a sample pack I bought some time ago contained a sample of a fragrance called Rocky Mountain Wood, pictured here, and I loved it, only to find out that it is discontinued and very expensive now. What I would recommend even more than a sample pack is to go to your local mall. If you have a mall that's anything like mine, then there will be a variety of stores like JCPenney, Dillard's, Macy's, Sephora, Kohl's, etc. Each of these stores will have a fragrance section, and each fragrance section will have a variety of things to try out. The biggest upside here is that you get to try way more than 8 to 10 fragrances. You can try dozens, and you know that the retailer has them in stock. The downside is that you don't get to spend all day with any particular fragrance. But in my opinion, sampling is just a lot of fun. I'll admit that the first time I went and did some sampling, it felt awkward. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing, and that's normal. It happens to the best of us. But once you get in, it's just fun. So grab some perfume strips and take notes. Speaking of perfume strips, let's talk about how to use perfume strips. So, perfume strips. These are little absorbent pieces of paper that you can sample perfumes with. Sometimes they're square, like these ones I stole from Bath & Body Works. Sometimes they have a fat end and a skinny end. If they do have a fat end and a skinny end, then you want to hold it by the fat end and spritz on the skinny end. So first, take a writing utensil and write down, I'm actually going to use this one, write down the fragrance that you're sampling, write down the name. Give it a quick sniff. It should smell like nothing. Just make sure it's not already dirty. And then give it a spritz. You don't have to, but I like to give it a little wiggle just to speed up the evaporation. And then, that's nice. And if you really want to make it look like you know what you're doing, then just close your eyes. That'll make it look like you're having some kind of, emotional, even intellectual, spiritual revelation. And another little trick that I learned is put a little bend in it. And that way you can set it down on the table without it getting dirty. And then you can just keep going. What else are we sampling today? Let's sample this Red Classic Match from PB Parfums, which is one of the dupe houses that I talked about in that section. Yes. Quite. What a fascinating bouquet. Yes. See, you're impressed, aren't you? See, it worked. Again, put a little dent in it, and we can sample something else, like this 948 from the Essence Vault. This is a peach-inspired fragrance, and let's give that a... That is so peachy. It's so, aggressively peachy that I wish Smell-O-Vision existed so I could send it to all of you. Again, put a little dent in it, and then you can put it down on the table without it getting dirty. And that's all. You can, again, pick it up from the table and smell it again. You can also put it in your pocket. Just don't stuff your pockets with them, because then the scents will all just bleed into each other. But that's how you use perfume strips. Real simple. So, when you're sampling, take your time. Write down the things you like and the things you don't like. Give your brief thoughts on each fragrance you try. Don't feel intimidated by the long list of fragrance notes. Remember that fragrance notes are highly subjective, just like tasting notes with wine. Talk to the employees. If they're good at their job, they'll be able to recommend stuff similar to the stuff that you liked. And once you've found 2 or 3 that you like the most, try them on your skin. If you're sampling dozens and dozens of fragrances, you can't put them all on your skin, but once you've found your 2 or 3 favorites, put those ones on your skin and see if you still like them. And when you're done sampling, you can choose to buy something right on the spot if you're absolutely in love with it, but you don't have to. You don't have to shell out serious money right then and there. In fact, this is your opportunity to go home and use the bargain hunter's best friend, Google. Google. There are so many ways to use it. Of course, you can easily use Google to look for fragrance inspiration, and I've even given some examples on screen here. But today I want to talk specifically about using Google to look for bargains. There are 4 ways I've used Google to look for fragrances on the cheap. I've shopped around for sales, I've found membership discounts, I've looked for dupes, and I've found samples and decants. You can shop for sales by going to the shopping tab and checking different websites and see if any of them have sales. You can find discounts by typing in the name of the brand along with the words discount or membership. You can look for dupes and samples or decants just by typing in the name of the perfume you like along with dupe, clone, sample, decant, whatever it is you most want to look for. Okay, let's talk about saving money. We all want to save money, right? You don't want to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on expensive fragrances if you don't have to. And if you do want to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on expensive fragrances just because, uh, here's my Venmo. Give that money to me instead. Thank you very much. So there are three main ways you can save money in the fragrance world. You can shop around for sales, you can get dupes, or you can use membership discounts. And let me give you an example of each. With sales, this is a bottle of Ralph Lauren's Polo Red EDT. Yes, it is still in the box because I am a nerd, but I believe the MSRP on this is about $100 or $110 US, which is pretty steep. But if you're willing to shop around, you can find them for much cheaper than that. I found this one, I believe, for 40, and it's great. It's the exact same thing, just if you're willing to buy it from somewhere other than Amazon, you can get a pretty nice discount. In the world of dupes, this might be one of my favorite dupes in my collection. This is Spice Black Vanilla by Cremo. This is based on the famous Tobacco Vanille by Tom Ford. It's a vanilla scent. Vanilla is one of my favorite scents in general. And I have tried this alongside the real thing. And I like this just as much as the real thing. The real thing's great, but this is also great. They're not exactly the same, but this has some properties that I really like that are different than the real thing. And gosh, I just really like this one. And it's a 15th of the price, $20 or $300. Would you rather spend $20 or $300? Especially if you don't even know if you like vanilla scents, then get this, it's only $20. And then you'll know if you like it or not. And then maybe you could even decide if you want to shell out for the $300 thing. But let's say there is an expensive fragrance that you do want and you want to get the real thing, then you can use a membership discount. And this is what happened with me when I really wanted to get this. This is L'Homme EDP by Yves Saint Laurent. It's just a gorgeous bottle. It's so shiny. In fact, it's reflecting everything else in this room, including my phone camera. But this is one where I wanted to get the real thing, and there weren't really any copies of it that I felt did a good job. And so I signed up for Yves Saint Laurent's rewards program just so I could get the one-time 25% off, like, thanks for joining discount, because I wanted this. So if there is an expensive fragrance that you do want, look around and see if there's some kind of rewards program or discount you can get, because I believe this goes for $80 or $90 US MSRP, and I got it for 60. So even if you do want an expensive fragrance, there's still probably a way to get it for cheaper than you might expect. Hey, I forgot there is a fourth option for saving money with perfumes. This was not scripted. Decants and samples. There are companies out there that will take popular fragrances and offer you teeny tiny samples of them so you can try them without having to buy a giant bottle of the real thing. And these are a few that I've tried myself. These were from a company called Scent Split, and they are still a little bit expensive. I want to say these three together were like about 20 bucks US, but for basically a tiny sample of three different very expensive perfumes that I didn't want to shell out a ton of money for the whole bottle, I'd say it was a decent deal. Not for everyone, but if there is an expensive fragrance out there that you just want to try, then this could be a way to do it. Now, I want to clarify something about that word dupe. Dupe is shorthand for duplicate, and in the perfume world, dupe is a term to describe a fragrance that is imitating a more popular fragrance. Dupes are not the same as counterfeits. A counterfeit product is one that tries to trick you into thinking it's the real thing. A dupe is not trying to trick you. It is just trying to give you something similar to the real thing at a lower price. Think of it like the store brand cereal at the grocery store, when you don't want to pay an extra $3 just to have Tony the Tiger on the box. Dupes could be a whole other video, as there is an entire world of clone fragrances out there, but let me rattle off a few that I have used. PB Parfum's products are widely available on Amazon and even some big box retailers, and they are exceptionally cheap. However, they have a somewhat limited selection, only copying the most popular of popular fragrances. Still, it's hard to beat their prices, and I've personally used a few of them. Dossier has a wide selection. They're also found at some big box retailers. Their prices are slightly higher. If you can find them on sale, they're excellent. The Essence Vault might have the best deals for you if you want to build a collection, and as a guy with a collection, they're my personal favorite. They have a wide selection of dupes, and if you're willing to buy in bulk, wait for one of their BOGO sales. Buy a 3-pack at a discount, use the BOGO to get another 3-pack, then use a coupon for 20% off. It feels like I'm cheating. I love it. Alt Fragrance is popular, but they have some pros and cons as well. All their fragrances come in extrait de parfum strength, so if you're like me and you prefer something less concentrated, then that's a negative. Also, their prices are slightly higher than the previous two I mentioned. However, if you're the kind of person who loves surprises, then their mystery fragrances are a very fun buy, and I'll admit, on more than one occasion, I've had fun just buying an alt mystery fragrance and seeing what I get. Finally, if you prefer rollers, there are companies like Oil Perfumery and Quality Fragrance Oils that have many dupes in roller form. And I don't have as much experience with these. I've only bought from Quality Fragrance Oils once, but they do seem to get good reviews. Remember, everything we've talked about follows Jesse's law of perfume. If you like it, it's good. If you like a fragrance that's cheap, that's good. If you like a fragrance that's expensive, that's good. If you like a fragrance that's very expensive, that's good. Or maybe if you like the fragrance because it feels classy, or because it feels stylish, or because it comes in a cool looking bottle, then that's good. Just be honest with yourself about the money you're spending and buy something that makes you happy. Part 6: How to use. As we talked about earlier, perfume works by the evaporative process. And for that reason, perfumers recommend that you apply perfume to the places where your skin is the warmest to get the most evaporation. These are known as pulse points, and most notably include your wrists and your neck. But with that being said, let's go to a live demo. So how much you apply comes down to personal preference and context. But for today, I will just show you 4 levels at which you can apply. I will call them light, extra, bougie, and super bougie. And we will be using the same Spice Black Vanilla fragrance from earlier because I was geeking out about it so much, I might as well wear it. For the light level, we're going to start with 1 spray on each wrist and 1 spray on the neck. For the extra level, we're going to add 1 more spray on the neck and 1 spray on the inside of each elbow. For the bougie level, we're going to add 1 spray on the underside of each ear. And for the super bougie level, we're going to add 1 spray on the underside of each knee. Yes, each knee. For the record, usually I stick with this or this. Doing it on my ears and on my knees just feels like a bit too much most of the time. In fact, after filming this, I am probably going to smell like vanilla for the rest of the day. I guess it could be worse. Hello, this is Jesse from the future. I still do not recommend over-applying because I went to the gym after filming that, and now my nose is really sore and irritated from breathing in that spice vanilla scent for the last hour. So, stay light. As a side note on how to use perfume, also remember how to store your perfume. Just remember to store your perfume in a cool and dark place. Light and heat can make certain chemicals in the perfume break down, and if you're using a roller, then excessive heat can cause the bottle to leak, which you really don't want. There are horror stories out there of expensive purses being ruined because they were left in a hot car with a roller inside. Just remember to be careful. Part 7: Beyond the Basics. Everything we've talked about up to this point is what I'd consider the basics. My fellow perfume geeks might already be screaming, but wait, you didn't even talk about... Yes, I know. We'll talk about a few of those things now. And if you want to get just a little bit more nerdy, then here are some additional things you can learn. Fragrance notes.
Earlier I told you not to worry too much about fragrance notes while you're shopping, and I stand by that. However, learning about fragrance notes can be fun in and of itself. Again, remember that fragrance notes are like looking at clouds. When you look at a cloud in the sky, you might see a dog and your friend might see a rabbit. Also remember that notes are often just suggestions. Your leathery cologne doesn't literally have leather in it, and the musk in your musky perfume is almost certainly an artificial one. Notes of a fragrance are generally split into top notes, middle or heart notes, and base notes. The top notes of a fragrance are the smells you notice immediately within the first 10 or so minutes after applying. The middle notes of a fragrance are the scents you notice after that initial burst of top notes fades away. The exact numbers vary depending on who you ask, but for our purposes today, I'll say that middle notes are most present between 10 and 60 minutes after applying. And finally, the base notes are the smells you notice an hour or 2 hours after applying the fragrance. And some fragrances are designed to have base notes that stick to you for a long, long time. If you want to try writing your own fragrance notes, I would recommend using a perfume that you already have. Apply a small amount just to your wrist so you don't go nose blind, and write down what you notice after 5 minutes, after 30 minutes, after 60 minutes. And try doing it on your own before you read the Fragrantica page for that perfume. I know Fragrantica is a great resource, but I believe you'll have more fun trying it on your own before checking the internet and reading about what it's supposed to smell like. And maybe after trying it on your own, you can then go read the Fragrantica page and try it a second time, see if your perception changes. On a similar note, pun intended, fragrance categories and the fragrance wheel. This is something that I wouldn't worry about unless, again, you want to get into the nerdy details of fragrances. The fragrance wheel itself is unscientific. It was originally created as a marketing tool, but the categories of the fragrance wheel are useful if you want to communicate with other fragrance geeks. Fragrances for certain contexts. These are essentially the perfume equivalent to wine pairings. If you read enough perfume blogs and forum discussions, eventually you'll hear about the topic of winter and summer fragrances or morning and evening fragrances. You need a perfect winter fragrance, so the blogs say. But this is something that, again, I would only recommend paying attention to if you want to get into the nerdy side of things. To be fair, there is some truth to this matter, but all contextual considerations are subject to Jesse's law of perfume. It is true that fragrances will evaporate faster under hot summer heat, and it is true that certain fragrances are meant to have a certain vibe, which goes back to the designer's intent. For example, Vanilla Vibes by Juliet's, which is pictured here, is intended to give a beach-like impression with the combination of vanilla and sea salt. It's meant to make you feel like you're at the beach. But it's also true that I love the smell of vanilla no matter what the day on the calendar is. Besides, when was the last time a stranger on the street approached you and said, "Excuse me, why are you wearing a winter fragrance when it's clearly summer?" Once again, what matters most is just that you like it. I do make sure that whatever I'm wearing at work doesn't irritate the noses of people around me, but other than that, whether a fragrance is wintry or summery is an afterthought to me. Oh, and to answer the question that some of you may have, yes, Juliet Has a Gun is a very silly name for a perfume company, but I guess it's memorable. Next we have indie fragrances. So we talked about shopping at your local mall, but what if you want to buy a fragrance that is truly unique? Well, there are loads of small brands out there, and maybe you even have a local perfumer or two in your area. Just bear in mind that it will cost more to get something made by a small company or made by a local perfumer. And if you're shopping for small brands online, it will be more difficult to try before you buy. Maybe try shopping at your local artist alley or convention, and you could find a scent you love made by someone local to you. Product labeling. Lots of fragrance companies will try to earn extra points by telling you that their fragrances are vegan. The truth is, this isn't special, at least not anymore. In this day and age, it's not difficult anymore to make a fragrance without animal products. If you see a company call its products cruelty-free, keep in mind that, at least in the United States, this term is not legally regulated. If you see not tested on animals, again, the exact meaning of that term varies from place to place. So if you want to go the extra mile in making sure your products are labeled properly and that these companies have the kind of ethics practices you're looking for, then you can do some of your own Googling on the company. If it's a small company, you can contact them directly, or you can always check with websites like Cruelty Free Kitty. This is an entire rabbit hole of its own. If you want to go down it yourself, I would recommend listening to the actual experts. As I've said many times, I'm not an expert, and this is something where I'm even more not an expert. Another Beyond the Basics topic is layering and blending. Many frag heads enjoy mixing 2 or more perfumes together to make a new scent for themselves. This generally works best with one lighter fragrance applied on top of one heavier fragrance, such as applying a citrus scent on top of a woody scent. You can also do what I like to call overloading a fragrance by applying a single scent in multiple ways. For example, if you absolutely love lavender and only lavender, then you can use a lavender shampoo, a lavender hand soap, a lavender lotion, and top it off with a lavender perfume. Going back to layering, if you layer 2 perfumes and you really like the way the 2 smell together, you can make them into a blend. Blending fragrances is how I got sucked even deeper into this hobby. I realized that I loved blending fragrances I had, and I loved making blends for my friends, asking them things they liked and making blends for them. And this can lead you to another Beyond the Basics topic, which is perfume making. Perfume making could be an entire other lecture. It's a hobby all of its own that I, again, am even less of an expert in. I will have links to a couple of articles in the resources document. This is a part of the perfume world that I have dipped my toes into, but I don't want to give too much specific advice since I'm still pretty new to it myself. Maybe in the future, when I am a more experienced perfumer myself, we can do a session on perfume making. Would my fellow dinos be interested in such a thing? But there's one piece of advice I can give, and that is if you make your own perfumes, make sure to put them in the most professional packaging possible. Part 8. Let's recap. We've covered a lot of ground today. You all are troopers. Let's do some recap of what we've learned today. First, your sense of smell is a powerful tool. Don't forget that. It's up to you to decide how much you dive into the world of fragrance. You should wear scents because you enjoy them, because that is the only reason that really matters. Spray perfume and non-spray perfume have different pros and cons, and it's up to you to decide which one you like the most. Jesse's Law of Perfume. If you like it, it's good. Use sample packs and your local mall to help you shop. Use Google to look for sales, dupes, discounts, and samples. Whatever you choose to buy, be honest with yourself about the money you spend. Apply perfume to places where your skin is the warmest, especially wrists and neck. Store your perfume appropriately so it doesn't leak. And remember, there are many, many ways to go beyond the basics in the hobby of perfume. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for listening. If you are watching this live, we will be going into a Q&A shortly. If you are watching this in the future, then the questions and answers from the Q&A will be available in the resources document. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you all go buy some awesome perfume.